more. Let's get to the story involving the Pac-12. Earlier today, or in a report today from John Wilner from the San Jose Mercury News and what is the Pac-12 hotline for now, that George Kliavkoff has said that USC and UCLA had been removed from the Pac-12 board. This was in a statement, a sworn statement in the Comcast case, which we'll get to, a potentially significant development for the Washington State, Oregon State lawsuit. Why?
Well, I mean, if they don't have any rights anymore, then that kind of works in the favor of Washington State and Oregon State. Although I wonder, how it, again, that's the first two teams. Well, what about the other 8 that left? Those are things. And the other thing that's also come out is that they are not $50 million in the hole to Comcast. They're $72 million in the hole to Comcast. The overpayments were far more than they said, because all he said before was it was over $50 million. Well, 72 is way over 50.
72 is almost another 25% or more, maybe 50% above what they thought. Yeah.
So distributions withheld by Comcast to offset 10 years of overpayments based on the company's flawed tracking of Pac-12 network subscribers was $58 million, and then reductions in distributions for this year to account for a correction in the subscriber figures is $14 million, and the source said it typifies 12 years of neglect.
Yeah, wow. Yikes. That's not a good look for George Kliavkoff. And I know that we've held off on getting Bob Thompson, or that he's, said, let's just wait till there's something a bit more concrete and substantial, which I agree. I think that that's better served. But, I saw him reacting to a couple of those tweets. And there's obviously a lot of interest with those two fan bases, and just, in general with what all that means for, a lot of different potential programs and teams and conferences, whatever gets resolved out there. But yeah, it's just kind of a tale of two parts of the day, I guess, because a few hours ago when the news came out that, it was acknowledged, Wilner was one of those two that had this out there, that, they had, basically treated USC and UCLA like they weren't a part of the deal anymore. That would, leads you to think that, okay, well, that plays into Oregon State and Washington State's hands as far as, these other schools and how they're leaving, although it's different circumstances. And so I'm not a legal expert. I won't pretend to be ever on here. I know we got people much smarter that can explain it better, but they're arguing that set a precedent, so that when these other schools did it, that meant, okay, well, that automatically means that you withdrew that way. So the argument's over whether or not that was actually precedent or not, and that's what they're going to wade through. But it did seem like it was a good, a good thing for those two remaining schools that was acknowledged, that they did not treat those two on their way out as though they were voting board members any longer. But as soon as you celebrated that, then this news comes out that all this money that you thought was there, there's even less of it than you thought. There's a lot less of it than you thought, to the point where, I saw it described by Wilner of, or somebody else, of how it was, basically depleted, the $70-something million because of these accounting errors. So, yeah, on the one hand, you'd think that'd be great news for those schools and their argument. Not that it is going to, absolutely be taken that way by a judge or whatever, but you would think that does lead into their argument. But on the other hand, all that money that you think that's leading to is not quite what you thought now, because of the revelation that they actually did far worse than we thought with handling their finances and the Pac-12 network and all those things. So you wonder too, in their negotiations with networks, how much of that, the Pac-12 subscriber numbers and things like that were talked about, and was that revealed? Was that uncovered? And did that lead to some of the hesitancy to drive up prices and to get that deal done by some of those networks, because they realized, this thing's a house of cards. This isn't what it's been made out to be. Because remember, well, they've got 100,000 this, and if everybody just pays this on Apple, then that'll lead to this. And well, the numbers were never even correct to begin with. So, just kind of bizarre how it got this far down the road. But, yeah, not a good look for George Kliavkoff in particular.
Bob Thompson's reaction to John Wilner's story involving well beyond $50 million, all he said was, wow, just wow, about all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder, the more you find out about it, there's no wonder the conference fell apart.
No.
Just it's a credit that they made it as long as they did. Honestly, it's kind of amazing that they didn't fall apart before this.
It's almost like they had termites within the conference administration, and no one ever checked for whether or not there were termites. So if Washington, Oregon State end up with the only 2 votes, we know what they can do. They can try to, hey, this is all ours. And then they also then have to pay back 65 or 75 million, right?
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Well, no, it's already kind of gone.
Yeah, it's
already kind of gone.
There.
Okay.
They don't have it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically the way that's kind of I've seen it taken is that if you thought that there was $70 million there, or whatever the figure is, there's not $70 million there.
Yeah.
There's not money there. So yeah, you're not paying off a bill. That bill's going to get paid off, and that's just not going to leave you nearly what you thought was left over.
Yeah, I'll also say this, like for anyone who thought that Oregon State and Washington State were going to have this open and shut lawsuit on the Pac-12, that's just wrong. I mean, like there's and they're probably finding a lot of this stuff out, like as we are. Like, okay, well, we're going to sue for this because I doubt a lot of this was common knowledge to the members of the league.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if you were in TV negotiations all this time, Paul, for the last year, then you were operating with this thought that you had this amount of money and these amount of subscribers and this was in your arsenal or your cachet, and it turns out like we're just now learning. They're just now learning that like all this is not exactly what it was propped up to be. So yeah, it's no wonder this thing fell apart on itself.
Yeah. So if you didn't know the whole time, like if you were relying on George Kliavkoff to just tell you, like, hey, everything's going well, then you look at, oh wait, Comcast overpaid us, and now we have to give some of that money back. So now we know that our network wasn't as valuable as we were told it was, and part of the reason. You have university presidents going and saying, well, worth $50 million is, and while that seemed ridiculous, now I'm kind of buying like why you could be like, well, if we've got this and we've got this, and the commissioner is telling us that this is the first offer, well, then maybe we need to play a little hardball here. Now, it ultimately was a dumb decision, but now the conference presidents, and this is their fault too, we're not playing with complete information because they didn't ask.
Smartest people in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess smart people can get duped too, as we see in daily lives. But yeah, they got duped big time. And you know what? I take some of what I just said back. It's not Kliavkoff as much. Larry Scott still deserves the majority of the blame. So yeah, I don't want to. I guess I apologize semi to George Kliavkoff. You still deserve some of the blame, I think, in the grand scheme of things. But no, Larry Scott definitely deserves more of the blame. I should have said that from the beginning. But yeah, they were operating this entire with all that hubris too, like with all that confidence and all that. Who are you? And you don't like all that kind of stuff. And you were operating from a position that was not even what you thought it was to begin with. And that's just a tough pill to swallow for Pac-12 fans who, for a long time are going to be talking about the demise of this conference and how it all unfolded. And I know there's probably going to be books written by one of the Johns at some point, and there's already been multiple articles and all that jazz. But man, like we're still learning new things about this now. Like today we learned like, nope, that money's not really there. So the story is far from over as far as, the entire picture of how it all came crashing down. But, it's still semi-standing up right now, and that's what they're working through. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is this just it's not an open and shut deal. There's a lot to try and figure out and a lot to be decided here.